Welcome, everyone, to the Mom Coaches Getting Clients podcast. And we are here with a special guest star today. The one and only Steph Blake is here. Yay.
Yay.
She is, in case you don't know, the founder and CEO of the Simple Business School membership and Simple Business Suite, a customized all-in-one software for online business owners. She's a business coach and consultant who helps online business owners run simple, streamlined, and profitable businesses in less than 20 hours a week, my favorite number of hours in a week to work. And she's been in business for 9 years and has helped thousands of people start and scale their own business to reach their unique freedom goals. And she's also a tech nerd, one of my favorite variations of nerd, and system strategist, wife, and a mom of two boys under the age of 5. Can you believe the cute she has to handle every day? That's like the prime cute years. And an Amazon Prime addict. Her favorite place to hang out is Instagram, like me. And you can find her there at the Blake Collective. So welcome to the show, Steph.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here for
Yeah.
this conversation.
I know we have a tendency to have fun conversations. I
We
was
do.
really lucky to be on your own podcast, and we were like, we have to do part two, part three. We were just really tempted to take off on some terrific tangents. So we kind of have a lot in common, and we're going to dive into that first. But maybe if you don't mind, just taking over the mic for a second and tell us a little bit more of what compelled you to start your business in the first place.
Yeah. So I did not grow up in an entrepreneurial family. I grew up in a very quote unquote traditional family where I had a mom. She was actually a single mom. She worked anywhere between like 60 and 80-hour weeks. My parents got divorced when I was in about second grade. So he was living elsewhere, but he also worked a lot, like 40, 50, 60 hours a week. So I grew up in a family of workaholics, you could say. And that was the path that I was just going down, right?
Yeah.
You go to high school, you go to college, you work in a company, and then you retire. So that's what was my trajectory, right? So I was on that path up until my mid 20s. So I graduated from college, got a job at a engineering company designing instruction manuals. So you can imagine how boring that was when a human was still doing that almost 15 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
And after a couple of years, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. So then I moved to Chicago, worked at a digital marketing agency for about 5 years. And it was around that time where I was working with a lot of franchises. So I would work with franchisors and franchisees, and I was seeing all of these like entrepreneurs starting these businesses in a sense, right? I was like, oh, wait, if they can do that, why can't I do that? But I
Hmm.
had no idea what to do. I had no idea how to start a business. So one day on my work break, I was targeted with a Facebook ad as I was just like scrolling through um, during lunch, and it said how to use your skills from corporate to create your own business. And I was like, oh, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. So
Algorithm.
exactly, that targeting was very good.
Yes.
So I signed up for that free training, probably bought the program after. And at this point, that was almost 9 years ago. So I spent the first 3 years of my entrepreneurial journey just like learning all of the different things and working way too much,
Yeah.
almost like 80 to 100 hours a week. Not seeing anybody. At that time, I was very newly married to my husband. So we get married, and then like 3 months later, I'm like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I want to start a business." And he's like, "Okay."
Cute.
Um, and it wasn't until I got pregnant with my first son almost 7 years ago, because he'll be six this year, so almost 7 years ago, that I realized I could not keep working the way that I was working because almost ended up in the hospital because I was just working
Oh,
so
wow.
much and doing so much.
Yeah. Wow. All right. That is, sorry. I was like traveling along in your journey and I was seeing pregnant stuff there. And
Yeah.
that is a very common season that I often have my clients coming to me to, either just in the, well, honestly, I find a high percentage of them coming to me for some weird reason having 5-year-old sons. Like either their
Huh.
youngest is 5 year olds or their oldest is 5 years old. So I think there's seasons in our life where we reassess, like what does is our time going to look like, kind of like doing that shoulder check of where we've been and what could get in our way of actually living the life we want. So my own theory is that's around the time that they get more independence. You're like, ooh, they can change their
Uh,
own diaper,
yeah,
or
well,
they
no,
start going to kindergarten.
they're out of diapers at that point, or they should be.
Yeah,
No, that
you
that's
should
so
hope.
true.
No judgment.
No, no, no judgment. Trust me. But that is one thing I have learned as a mother. Do not judge any other mother or any other parent
Exactly.
for anything.
Exactly. And that's the cool thing with like the entrepreneurial path. Just like that, we can raise our businesses in whatever works for us. But what I find universal is simplicity works for everyone. And especially moms, because, well, everyone's days get full. You have a day, it gets full with stuff. But with moms, it's just, I just notice with my own experience, my head gets full too with my kids' days. My kids are like much older than yours now, 16 and 20. And still, I'm like always like lying in bed. Okay, tomorrow she's going to work and she's going to school. And then he's got blah, blah, blah. You're always kind of like, you have to be one step ahead of like not only yourself, your children, your partner, but also your business. And the best way to keep on top of everything is to keep things simple. So I got a whole whack of concepts and metaphors and perspectives on the concept of simplicity. But you're the special guest star today, and I cannot wait to dive into your, I was going to say simple world, but your world of simplicity. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, no, I
So,
mean, the thing about the 5-year-old that you mentioned, I think that's so true because as a mom, I really feel like that's the point where you can start to come up for air.
yeah.
I noticed like, and I have a 2-year-old, my son just turned 2 a couple months ago, and I feel like the first 2 years are just pure survival mode. It's
Yeah.
like you are just trying to survive. After that, it continues to get a little bit easier, but I think you're right. Around like 5 is where they start to become more independent. They can do their own thing, and you're like, oh yes, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I can do something else again. And I've run my business with kids and without kids. So I had my business for 5 years before I even had any, or 4 years before I had kids. And the way that I operated then was completely different from the
Mm-hmm.
way that I operated now. And the biggest difference was I was overcomplicating everything,
Yeah.
overcomplicating everything in the very
Mm-hmm.
beginning because I could do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. Because I didn't have, like, outside of my job that I was working, like, I didn't have anybody needing me for anything. And now, for example, a couple of weeks ago, one of my oldest son was sick. He was sick for a week. So I was like, okay, well, everything that I had planned for this week is now gone
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I have to be there for my baby. So,
Totally.
and I think that's really where the simplicity is so important, especially
Mm-hmm.
as a parent, as an entrepreneur, because if you're overcomplicating the different pieces of your business, all that's going to do when something comes up, because it always will come up
Mm-hmm.
when you have kids to deal with, it just makes it that much harder for to not only operate your business, but to also be successful and to be profitable in your
Yeah,
business.
for sure. And even like the mindset, if you take a pause, no matter how short or long, to get back into it. If it's overcomplicated, it just feels like so overwhelming. And there's
Yeah.
that danger of just like throwing in the towel together. And we don't want y'all to do that. So, what are some
Yeah.
tips and strategies you can offer to keep our businesses and systems simple?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I really have this 5-part process that I always say that you need to do, and it's really focusing on like making sure that you're selling one main offer. Start there because that's really the biggest thing that I see people are overcomplicating is they're trying to sell so many different things.
Hmm.
And what inevitably happens is when you're trying to sell a bunch of different stuff, people, your audience, they don't know what you're really great at. And especially if none of the offers are connected, if it's just like a bunch of like random things that you just came up with, right? They're not going to know what you're really great with, and they're not going to know how you can help them. So everything that I do in my company is related to simplicity in some way. It literally has simple in the title because when people think of simple, I want them to think of Stephanie, right? My
Awesome.
podcast, Simple Business Show. My software, Simple Business Suite. Simple Business School is my membership, right? So it's like I'm subconsciously reminding people every time they look at anything that I create that it is all focused on simplicity. Now, that's my biggest piece of advice for people who are either just getting started in business, or if you've been in business for a while and you're feeling really overwhelmed, you're like, I'm just doing way too much. I don't even know like what's left from right anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, go back to the basics and focus on one thing. Focus
Mm-hmm.
on one thing, reach your goals, whatever that looks like for you. So whether that's like a revenue goal, a time goal, right? Once you get to that point, then that's where we can start to be more strategic with adding other pieces on, right? But the last thing you want to do is add more stuff into the mix if you're already like barely treading water,
Mm-hmm.
right? Does that
Totally.
make sense?
Oh yeah, I call those the bells and whistles. Like
Yeah,
just start with
exactly.
like that foundation of your business at its like some essence of sheer simplicity. And then when you're kind of getting like, yeah, like you're saying momentum, then you could throw on some like, woohoo, check this out. And when we
Exactly.
talk about, I love that advice, selling just one main offer. I love it. And what I always envision when I hear that genius yet simple piece of advice is for some reason a garden hose, the kind that you could put like the nuzzle, the like you squeeze it like a nuzzle, like a I don't want to say like a gun, but you know what I mean, like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
hose.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can adjust. And it's like putting all that pressure into like one little like target. So all your effort is just actually going to move the needle, as opposed if you screw the nozzle and it gives you that like fine mist and it sprays it everywhere. You know what you see? You see rainbows, and then you just kind of get stuck in that la 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 la, and everything kind of gets a little tickle of water, but it's not enough to actually see any kind of growth. So I love that piece of advice and totally makes sense.
And not only that, it's like, sure, your audience is going to be confused. You're going to be confused because at some point you're just going to be like, I don't even know what I'm selling anymore. But
Yeah.
then the back end become very confusing. And if you have like any automations or
Hmm.
anything like that set up, that's where chaos can really
Yeah.
start to happen, because
Yes.
now things are breaking. You're sending automations for things that aren't even like, you're not even selling this thing anymore, and there's still like automation set up for it. So it's
Hmm.
like the more complex you make it, it makes it more chaotic all around, right? It's not just like selling this thing. There's
Hmm.
so many more repercussions outside of you just selling something, like coming up with an offer and selling it.
Exactly. Oh yeah, for sure. And then you'll have to like update things and actually today I have to be transparent. I woke up to a notification. Oh, congratulations, you sold this course. I'm like, how did this person find this sales page?
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Like
I
what?
don't mind. It is set up for automation, but it did make me feel a little bit less CEO-y because I'm like, oh my God, get it together. So I'm like, I should hire someone just to look at all these nooks and crannies, look under the bed of my business, like see what's hiding there. Because yeah, it just kind of chip away at your confidence. It's like, no, I know exactly what's going on. So no, that's brilliant little tidbit there for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you also have to think about like not just, there's also the hidden costs too that people aren't thinking about. It's
Yes.
like the wasted time, the burnout, the mental
Hmm.
load,
Hmm.
right? There's all of these different pieces, plus things falling through the cracks, like you're missing opportunities,
Yeah.
especially if you don't have like a follow-up system in place and whatnot. I don't want to dive into that too
Yeah.
much, but I think that's the part that people don't really think about, because they're like, oh, well, I'm running a business. I should be working. I should be working a lot. That's what entrepreneurs, quote
Yeah.
unquote, do. Right. But that's not the case. It doesn't have to be that way unless you allow it to be that way. And
Yeah.
most people do allow it to be that way.
Hmm. You're working a lot, but you're also working a lot on marketing the thing that you work a lot on, right? Like
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
got
And that's usually what people say is they're like, well, I'm going to get bored, or I'm multi-passionate and I'm good at a lot of different things. Well, guess what? I'm multi-passionate. I have ADHD, first of all. So, like,
hmm
you can imagine there's a lot happening in my brain every second of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm also good at a lot of different things just because I've done a lot of different things over the years. But the truth is that we are running businesses,
Yeah.
right? We are running businesses and we can always add these like new fun creative things in, but that doesn't mean we have to create and sell new things. Like,
Mhm.
for example, you could have your main, like, for example, my Simple Business School membership, right? So I have that. That's my one offer, but then I can do fun things to bring people into
Hmm.
that offer. So I'm not starting over each
Yeah.
time. I'm just coming up with fun ways to lead people where I want them to go.
Yeah. I hear you. I love that. It's like, I remember, it must have been 3 years ago, I dove into my human design. We spoke a bit about this on your own podcast as well. And I have this one channel that's for like, artistic creatives. So it really brought to the forefront how important it is for me to tap into that creative play every day. So what I've done is I funneled that into my Instagram reels. Like, again, bells and whistles time. If life feels full, like if I'm feeling like a bit of a headache, or we have out of town guests coming, like I'll keep my Instagram feeds pretty simple. But if I'm feeling like I'm having a pretty streamlined, chilled day, I feel like getting a little creative. Then it's an opportunity for me to like do some silly like Instagram reel, like just for fun. And that fun comes through, and then you really express how you stand out from perhaps other people who are offering like similar offers. But especially in my industry, coaching, it's really important that you get a feel whether you connect with that person, if they give you the ick, or if they think
Right.
that actually I would like to hang out with that person once a week for 6 months, right? So it's important to, and you can afford to have that type of fun and play when again you got the basics down and you're only focused on like selling just not a billion things but one, maybe two, when you're get some momentum going. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also have your ideas are so much better because
Yeah.
you're not feeling rushed, right? Like
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
this has happened to me so many times where I feel like, okay, I have to come up with this idea for an email. Or I'm just going
Yeah.
to sit down on my computer and it's going to come to me. Nothing comes to me. I go outside and I go for a walk, and then
Yes.
when I'm 30 feet down my sidewalk, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea for an
Oh
email,
my
right?
God. Yeah. And also too, you were saying like you have, all the interests. Like that's what hobbies are for. Like my obsession with pickleball. Before we hit record, I told you I was chatting with a fellow pickleballer, the one
Mhm.
who also took off because he wasn't feeling well. Anyways, that guy, when we were talking, I told him, I'm like, this conversation we're having, because I actually hired him to be my pickleball coach, because me and three of my girlfriends, I know I'm a pickleball nerd, we're going to these tournaments and he's a coach. We hired him, and the advice he already started giving us, I'm like, I'm going to record a podcast all about what my pickleball coach says. So you go out there and like all these things that you want to cram into your business because you're passionate about, you could for sure sprinkle that magic into how you're already marketing, delivering your services, what have you. But you can also just go out into the world with that passion and just like drench yourself, be present and experience, and then allow that inspiration to give you a different perspective on what your area of expertise is in your business, but also these really fun metaphors. So I got so many pickleball metaphors now, birthing metaphors, cow milking metaphors. It's just like whatever like kind of turns you on. Well, milking cows doesn't turn me on, but whatever kind of like you're passionate.
Conversation for another.
Yes, yes. We might have to adjust the rating of this episode, but whatever. You can apply that to your business in like ways. So even though it's a simple model, you can like sprinkle it with what makes you you, and that is typically what you're passionate about in life.
Yeah. And then it gets so much more fun too, because if you're just trying to just sell a bunch of random stuff because you need
Hmm.
money, like that's also
Yeah,
not going to work because that's just going to repel people
totally.
and people can feel your energy. When you're like really
Hmm.
excited about something and it's something that you're truly passionate about, that's the thing that you want to sell,
Yeah.
right? Because people are drawn to you,
Yeah.
not just on an energetic level, but like people
Yeah.
want to be around people that are excited about the things they're doing, right?
I got a crown put in, and I drove 8 hours away to see my husband's best friend, and because he's really good dentist, and I sat in his little what do you call it? Like a room where like consult room, and he had like a giant x-ray of my tooth, and the way he was so excited to put this crown in my head, it's like I was like I never saw that side of him before. It made me like less nervous about the procedure. I'm like, you're really into this. And he was so excited. He was actually doing this, if you're listening to the podcast, like tapping his fingers together, wiggling them. Like that, I love being around people. Yeah, regardless of what their industry is or profession, but it brings comfort. It's an awe to see someone like in their element like that. So yeah, yeah, that's very, very tangible. Hmm.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, you can feel that in your own body too. Like you can feel when it
Yeah.
feels good and exciting, and you can feel when it feels off. So if it's ever feeling
Hmm.
off, that's a very simple way to say like, okay, this is not something that I want to be doing. And if it's feeling off because you're afraid, that's one thing. But if it's feeling off because it's just like not aligned with
Mm,
you or what you enjoy or what feels actually good to you, like that's something to consider. Like we're always doing scary things every day.
yeah.
So that's always important to do. But if, like, for example, if somebody tells you the only way to grow your business is by creating reels every day on Instagram, and the thought of creating a reel makes you want to poke your eye out, like
Yeah.
that's not going to work for you,
Yeah.
right? But if you love to talk, like I do, you could probably tell, then let's find ways to grow your business where you can talk
Hmm.
a lot and basically get paid for it.
Podcasting.
Exactly. Guest
Great.
speaking.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah. All right. And what else can you offer us in terms of keeping our businesses simple and fun and ick free?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, there's a couple of different ways that we can go with this. So, one thing that I do want to talk about is because this always comes up, always, always, always. It's like, okay, I'm thinking about simplifying my business, but we're talking about the offer, right? We're talking about like selling to one person, solving one problem. Those are all like very important things to do. But the piece that most people, excuse me, don't really consider is what's happening on the back end of their business, because that's the piece that's
Mm,
scary
yeah.
for a lot of people, especially
Hmm.
if you're not a tech nerd like me. And these are the things like our systems and our tools, right?
Hmm.
This is another thing that we need to keep very simple. And I touched on this earlier because remember, the more things that you're selling, the more chaos that can come from this, especially if changes need to be made or you decide to not sell that thing anymore. I mean, you notice that, right? You had a
Yeah,
sale come through, which is great. We all want sales all of the time, but for the things that we should be
I
selling ideally.
know.
Um, so like this is really like where people get confused is the difference between tools and systems. So tools are like the actual software that you're using to run your business. And then the system, that is how you can use those tools really effectively, right? So this is another thing where I see people getting very like confused, I guess is the best way to say it, because
Yeah.
there's so many different tools available, right? That they are just signing up for all of these different tools and then they're trying to piece them together
Hmm.
and things aren't working. They're having to like log into like 30 different places to just run their business or like paying so much money for all of these
Yeah, it adds
different
up.
tools.
Totally.
Yeah, it really does.
Hmm.
It really does. There was a point where I was using like 20 different tools to run my business and I was
Wow.
paying over $1,000 a month just on software
Oh
costs.
yeah,
So like
easily.
this is yeah, like it was like this is not okay.
Yeah.
So like that's the other piece I want people to consider. Like we always want to focus on the marketing and the selling, right? But we also need to make sure that we're keeping all of the things in the back end of our business really, really simple as well. So we talked about the tools, but that's also the processes. So we need to make sure that we have processes for the things that we're doing because if you're a solopreneur now, you will need to eventually hire somebody to help you with something at some point, even if it's a virtual assistant you hire for 5 hours a month to schedule social media posts for you. I don't know,
Hmm.
whatever it is, right? That is when we really need to make sure that, again, we're keeping our offers really simple and streamlined. We're keeping our tools really simple and streamlined. And then we have those systems in place so that when it comes to the time for us to outsource these things and get more of our time back, right? Because we can delegate these things, then that's when those systems really come into play. So it's very important for delegating. But even if you are a solopreneur, having really simple systems in place is also great for you because if you're doing a lot of the same things, like I don't know, I keep going back to like the scheduling social media posting. Like if you have this process for something that you do repeatedly, it's going to make it so much easier every single time you do it, even if you think you
Hmm.
know what that process is. Because there have been so many times. There's a lot of things I do repeatedly in my business, but there's so many times where going back to the kids, like I'll sit down to work, all of a sudden I hear my 2-year-old screaming, so I have to run out of my office. And then I come back and I'm like, okay, what did I even just do? If I didn't have a process in front of me,
Yeah.
like and like steps to follow, like I would have to start from scratch. Like I'd start over again,
Yeah.
right? And that's just taking more time and energy and not great. Not great. I could be using that time in so many other
I
ways.
know. I know. Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah,
my existence, except instead of a 2-year-old child, I have a 13-year-old miniature dachshund.
right.
Yep, two of them, two dogs just barking. I feel like I'm up and down, up and down. And you're right. I come
Yep.
back and I'm like, I have no idea what I was just doing. And I'll just start going on down this crazy like rabbit hole. The first thing I see on my screen, it's such a time waster.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's where like the whole shiny object syndrome comes in
Mm-hmm.
because then we get distracted and then we're not focusing on the things that we need to be doing. And like tools are definitely a big shiny object for a lot of people. I
Yeah.
know there's been so many times when I've worked with different coaches and they're like, oh, you need this tool and this tool and this tool to make sure that this strategy works for you. And then I'm like, what? That doesn't even make sense. I don't need all of these different tools to make one strategy work. Like that's that's not right. But I didn't realize that until much later after investing in all of those different pieces of software as well. So I think that's really the other piece is just giving yourself permission to to simplify, giving yourself permission. And I know we talked about human design before, but I am a sacral authority. So like um, I have that gut instinct,
Yeah.
right? Of like
Me too.
knowing, okay, when something, yeah, we talked about that, when
Hmm.
something is off. So I think that's another really important thing to remember. Like if something in your business feels off and you're not sure why,
Hmm.
even if somebody else is telling you like this is the way that it should be, like lean into that and ask yourself why, because that's where a lot of that overcomplication comes in because people are just like blindly following what other people are saying,
Yeah,
right?
totally. Um, I was wondering if you could give us some steps to take to actually start putting this into action.
Yeah. Totally. Well, I mean, I talked about a lot.
Systems.
So systems, yeah, specifically. Okay. Yeah. So, in terms of like simplifying your systems, I'll just give you like a couple of quick steps that you can get started with. So, really, the first thing is to audit the different tools that you're using. That's really the best place to start because we don't want to be paying for things that we don't need, right? We want to make sure that we're using all of the right tools for our business, not something that just like somebody recommended for whatever reason. And we also want to make sure that all of those tools have a very specific ROI for your business. Okay. And then after that, we want to, so we have our tools in place, right? Then we want to go and we want to look at those processes that we have. If we don't have any, right, now we're going to start to create those. And it could be as simple as just recording your screen as you're going through the process of doing something. So scheduling social media posts, let's go back to that. After you, let's say you're using a social media scheduler like the one we have in the Simple Business Suite or whatever. Um, you're recording your screen as you're going through that process. So you're documenting the whole process
Yeah.
so you can have it later. And if you have Loom, they have a really great AI tool that will like literally break down that step-by-step process for you. So you'll have
Cool.
it in a video format. Yeah. And then you'll also have a written format. Um, and then from there, we just want to basically continue like doing that, right? We want to make sure that we're getting in this habit of simplifying every piece of our systems every day, right? So making sure, again, we're using the right tools and we're creating processes around those tools that we're using because eventually what we're going to want to do, like I said, is either delegate that to somebody else or automate it if possible. So I guess that would be like the next step that comes in is start to automate those more repetitive things as well.
Awesome. My God, so much goodness here. You're making me it's like when you're watching one of those Marie Kondo shows. Not that I ever have. I think I saw one episode, but it gets you excited about let's just do this because we all know how good it feels to, well, I know how good it feels when I go through my closet and just do the shift of seasons clothes. And then you look and everything is pared down to what am I currently using? what goes well together. So I just close my eyes, grab something, and it's like the less decisions you have to make, better life feels.
Exactly. So this is basically like Marie Kondoing your business.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Awesome. And it's totally doable. And I love this. Steph, thank you so much.
You're
So,
welcome.
as you can sense in the tone of wrap up our conversation pretty quick here. Um, Oopsies. I think I lost my microphone for a second. Nope. Um, so if people are really excited to do this and get their systems together in a really smart, simple way, how can they find you and how can you help them?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is theblakecollective.com. So that's the best place to go because it has everything in one very simple place. Very easy to find all of the different things. I also have a podcast, The Simple Business Show, which you were a guest on. So you can
Yeah.
find me there. And I'm sure you're going to link to all of these as
Yes, I
well.
will in the show notes for sure.
Yeah. And then I also have a free, it's called the Simplify Your Business Blueprint. And that is a step-by-step, literally step-by-step blueprint
Nice.
showing exactly how to simplify your business. And it breaks it down over 9 steps. And it also comes with um, an email course. So I'm not only teaching you how to like simplify each of those different steps, but I'm also sending you an email sharing my very real examples of how I simplified that area as well.
Oh my God, I love that. I'm totally signing up for that.
Okay,
Awesome.
please
All
do.
right. All those links and this amazing freebie will be at the show notes found at blissbeyondnaptime.com. And just to make life simple, let's throw a slash Steph there. So that you can more easily find those links and everything you need to start simplifying your systems and processes today. And thank you so much for coming, Steph. I'm so glad we keep getting to talk. Again, we could go on and on, but it's time to wrap up. And I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, we could sit here and talk about this for hours.
It's so fun. It's
This
both
was
our
great. Thank
passions.
you. It is.
Thank you.